Christmas has just passed. The new year is just around the corner. However, the atmosphere in Las Vegas still feels stuck in Halloween. Gloomy, decline, and as empty as a ghost town. Casinos are empty room. Occupancy is lower than expected, and many resorts are forced to offer discounts or launch a flurry of promotions, even during what should be the busiest time of the year. Las Vegas is perhaps facing a structural shift. Gambling no longer requires a physical casino. Sports betting is right in your phone. $26 for a bottle of Fiji water. Concerts, large shows and sporting events are now appearing in most major cities. Vegas has lost the exclusive advantage that sustained it for decades. So what's really happening? Why did Las Vegas, a symbol of entertainment gambling and mass tourism, fall into this state even after the holiday season? Is this a temporary consequence of a weakening economy or a sign that Vegas's business model is hitting a ceiling? In this video, we'll delve into the core reasons behind the empty casino phenomenon. Changes that visitors rarely notice, strategic decisions from the big players on the strip themselves, and why more and more people are choosing not to return to Las Vegas. Las Vegas has always been a place where you know you're going to spend money. That's the truth, everyone understands it, even before setting foot in America's city of sin, and most people accept it, even find it enjoyable. Because the high cost of old Vegas was like part of the game. You came here to spend money, to try your luck, to live a few days as a freer version of yourself. But in recent years, it seems things are going too far. For decades, Vegas has thrived on what could be called an unspoken contract. With visitors, you gamble and lose money at the casino, in return for which you get a cheap, easy and perk-filled experience. The room might be cheap. Buffets can be so cheap that they operate at a loss. Drinks can be generous, even free. The core of that formula is very clear. Vegas doesn't need to make much from meals or resort fees because they make money the longer you stay. The longer you stay, the more you play. The more you play, the more attached you become to this place. It's all like a constant whispered invitation. Don't rush back. Stay a little longer. This city will give you a reason. But then that formula was reversed. Vegas is no longer inviting. Vegas is starting to charge every place. After the post-COVID period, many casino and hotel corporations shifted their focus, not only earning from gambling, but also maximizing profits at every touchpoint. Resort fees, check-in surcharges, parking, food, minibar drinks, Wi-Fi. Everything is separated into a separate layer of fees. Initially, this could be understood as an effort to recover from the pandemic, coupled with the revenge spending mentality after a long period of social distancing. At that time, the campaign to collect additional fees hadn't generated too much controversy. But gradually, what was originally hospitality turned into a systematic fee mechanism. From a resort fee of around $25, many places raised it to $35, then $45, and now it's $50, some even reaching $60 per night. The experience, therefore, is no longer entertainment, but rather a feeling of being legally pickpocketed. Scandal erupted when a guest at Aria owned by MGM was charged $26 for a bottle of minibar water in June 2025, causing a social media firestorm, and many newspapers describing this as a prime example of excessive pricing. It's noteworthy that similar reflections also come from the tourists' own experiences. Some complained about paying $26 for a litre of water, $15 for a can of Coca-Cola, indicating this is not just an isolated incident. But the moment that truly made the case a major milestone was when it went so far that the CEO of MGM had to publicly admit on an earnings call, "Shame on us, the infamous $26 bottle of water, Starbucks coffee at Excalibur, cost $12. When the head of a major corporation has to say that it's no longer a case of customer complaints, it officially became a reputation crisis. A Colombian tourist shared, "Vegas has lost its magic. No one wants to go to a popular entertainment icon that has been corporate packaged into a profit-making machine." And when a destination is labelled rip-off, the consequences don't stop at a few bills. Anger often leads to behaviour people leave. When customers feel they've been tricked, they don't just spend less, they stop coming back. From then on, the consequences spread to every other area. Restaurants, small shows, shops, taxis, ride shares. Because tourists began to view the entire city with suspicion. Vegas inadvertently transformed itself from the city of miracles into the city of bills. When a city is viewed as a toll machine, people will retreat before they even have a chance to play a hand. And that's how prices began to turn into something more dangerous: emptiness. If Vegas continues down this path, what will happen to what has sustained it for decades? The crowds and the soul of the casinos. Let the next section answer this question. A decrease in tourism of 11.3% doesn't sound too serious until you put that number into the proper context of Las Vegas. In a city that thrives on crowds' noise and the ebb and flow of people, losing nearly 400,000 visitors in just 1 month is a dangerous setback. In June 2025, Las Vegas welcomed approximately 3.1 million visitors, a decrease of 11.3% compared to the same period the previous year, equivalent to 394 from 900 missing visitors. This isn't just less fun. It's a signal that consumer spending sentiment is contracting, and Vegas is where this is felt most acutely because the city's very nature depends on discretionary spending. That decline isn't just on the reports, it's very evident in the casino space. Previously, casinos in Vegas operated like a continuous flow. People passed through, some stopped, others joined in, and one crowded table would lead to another becoming crowded. But as the crowds thinned, the casino began to reveal the gaps that Vegas hates most. Rows of slot machines lit up, but with no one pulling up a chair, fewer gaming tables, open areas with dimmed lights, or reduced staffing in bars where employees stood yawning instead of serving continuously. In Vegas, empty space isn't just empty, it's a psychological signal. If an area is sparsely populated, others are less likely to enter, as the feeling of no atmosphere makes the experience less appealing. Looking at the accommodation infrastructure data, the picture becomes even clearer. The report notes that hotel occupancy decreased by approximately 15% and international visitors decreased by approximately 13%. When a city relies on external tourist flow to maintain its year-round rhythm, this slowdown triggers a chain reaction. Reduced customer flow forced the casino to operate according to business logic: cut hours, reduce staff open, fewer tables, tighten comps, and tighten promotions. And when services are over-optimized, the experience becomes dry, lifeless, and less generous. Exactly what once made Vegas different. The most dangerous part is Vegas doesn't sell scenery. Vegas is semi-atmospheric. The atmosphere is a mix of noise, lights, and the feeling that everything is happening. When the casino is empty, the atmosphere disappears and Vegas loses its core advantage. The crowd is not a consequence. The crowd is a product. Once that product disappears, the city not only lacks visitors, it lacks a reason for visitors to feel excited about spending money. And as the crowds thinned, consumers began to feel more clearly the things that were previously obscured by the hustle and bustle, friction surcharges, and bill wariness. When a destination makes you wary of every spending decision, it's no longer a vacation. It becomes an endurance test. Why are more and more people no longer wanting to return? A city can survive a low season. But a city is difficult to live in if it loses its core, the ability to make people feel welcome, happy, and respected when they spend money. And to understand why people don't want to go back, you need to look at where Vegas has changed the most, how the formula of value that once made this city has been broken. No one hates paying for fun. People just hate being charged as if they're fools. And this is the point where Las Vegas began to lose the loyalty of tourists. Not because it's expensive, but because it makes people feel like they're being tricked. For decades, Vegas built its reputation on a very clear formula: take money at the gaming tables and give it back in the form of feeling pampered, like a god. You can lose at the casino, but you're compensated by things that make the trip enjoyable. Affordable rooms, cheap buffets, generous drinks and offers and comps that make you feel like you're still winning in some way. That's the mechanism that keeps adult seniors and families with children coming back. Vegas doesn't need you to win money. Vegas just needs you to feel like you're paying a lot to get something worthwhile in return. But after COVID, that formula was replaced by something colder, optimizing profit at every touchpoint. Everything began to be revalued, like separate puzzle pieces, resort fees, check-in surcharges, parking, Wi-Fi, food, minibar and drinks. If Vegas used to make money by keeping guests longer, Vegas now makes money by charging even when guests are just trying to survive in this city. And that changes the nature of the trip from a voluntary game to a series of disadvantageous negotiations. The incident exploded when a bottle of water and a cup of coffee became symbols of price-based insult. The CEO of MGM Resorts, one of the corporations that owns many iconic resorts on the Strip, publicly admitted, "Shame on us. The infamous 6-bottle of water. Starbucks coffee at Excalibur costs $2." This is no longer an online rumor. This is a confession on the mainstream stage where businesses are usually very careful with every word. And that's why it became a Vegas moral case. People weren't reacting to the water or coffee, but to the feeling of being treated like an object that could be exploited to the fullest. This scandal resonates deeply because it strikes at the most common thing. $12 for a cup of coffee is not luxury pricing. It's like a sarcastic wink, "You've come here, you'll pay." $26 for a bottle of water is not value for service. It's more like a fee for helplessness. And when the most basic things are priced as a joke, visitors begin to wonder if even water can be chopped. What else in this city is honest? Within the same ecosystem, resort fees are also increasing in a way that makes many people feel Vegas has been taking advantage of guests' compromises for too long. MGM increased resort fees to $55 a day at premium resorts and raised them to $50 and $45 elsewhere. This is what makes the outrage more widespread, because the resort fee isn't perceived as buying extra value, but as a mandatory charge to access the experience. It turns the trip into a multi-layered bill where the listed price is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's why this story can't be simply explained by "Vegas is expensive." Vegas used to be expensive, and people still went back. The problem is that Vegas used to be expensive in a predictable and acceptable way. And now Vegas is expensive in a way that makes you feel like you're being ripped off. When value turns into fees, customers no longer feel welcome. They entered an entertainment city but had to live in a defensive mindset. And once that mindset sets in, Vegas doesn't just lose money, Vegas loses something more important, the feeling of fun. But if we only blame prices and fees, the story is still missing a piece. Why is Vegas not only expensive, but also tiring? And why are some areas of Vegas still crowded at times while many casino floors are empty? The next part will answer that. Perhaps Vegas isn't empty because it's expensive. Perhaps Vegas is empty because it's no longer worth it in people's minds. Expensive is just the most visible part. But if we stop there, we'll miss 3 deeper layers of causes that are quietly and systematically dragging this city down. The first layer is price, but not just the total price. The problem lies in the experience being broken down into a series of fees. People might accept Vegas being expensive if it gives them a sense of being served, being treated generously, and being truly entertained. But when the price increases, along with surcharges, friction, and a feeling of being tricked, the trip starts to sour. This is the time when tourists are not only wondering, "Do I have enough money?" but rather, "Do I want to be treated like that?" And the second question is much more dangerous because it strikes at loyalty. The second layer is economic policy and environment. AP describes a multifaceted picture: economic instability, weak consumer confidence, a decline in international visitors and policy factors such as trade, immigration affecting travel sentiment. This is where Vegas suffers a double blow, as it is heavily reliant on tourists willing to spend on experiences. As the world enters a state of caution, from costs to policies, people will cut discretionary items first. And Vegas, while still iconic, is actually one of the biggest discretionary expenses. Finally, there's market behavior and structure, the very things that are causing Vegas to lose its exclusive advantage. Gambling no longer has to be associated with a flight. Sports betting is in your phone. States are expanding casinos and sports betting. Online gambling makes going to Vegas to play no longer a necessity like it used to be. Investopedia analyzes this trend as part of a long-term shift. Vegas is facing a world where gambling is decentralized and gambling destinations are no longer exclusive to one city. The paradox is that gaming revenue remains relatively stable. The city is still making money, but it no longer creates the same feeling of bustle as before. This is a sign of a divergence. There are still people who spend heavily, but the mass market group, the group that creates the atmosphere and pace of life, is starting to disappear. When an entertainment city loses its atmosphere, it can still be brightly lit, but it will be lit differently brightly like a business, rather than brightly like a celebration. And that's why Vegas isn't just facing a price crisis. It faces a worth it or not crisis. When confidence wanes, when policies make tourists hesitant, and when changing consumer behavior causes Vegas to lose its exclusivity, the emptiness is no longer a seasonal fluctuation. One group came to find value. A group came to find a show. They both encountered the same thing: extra fees. And it's at this point that Las Vegas begins to reveal a major flaw. It's no longer just an expensive destination, but one that makes people feel disrespected. For many adults and seniors in America, Vegas was once a collective memory, cheap, easy fun, and full of perks. No one goes to Vegas to save money. But people come for a clear feeling: if you're willing to spend money, Vegas will pay you back with generosity. You might not win at the betting table, but you still feel treated like a guest. Vegas used to be a place where people could escape from everyday life for a few days, and it was that feeling that created loyalty. Meanwhile, international visitors enter Vegas with different expectations. They often accept higher prices as flight costs and schedules are already expensive. But what they found difficult to accept was the hidden total price mechanism. Resort fees, parking check-in surcharges, or other add-ons that appear at the end make them feel the system lacks transparency. For many international visitors, this isn't just about money. It's a matter of principle. You can charge a high price, but don't make people feel misled by a false price. The difference in expectations becomes even more important when data shows a decline in international tourist arrivals. In June 2025, international visitors decreased by 13%, a notable figure because this group is the lifeblood that keeps Vegas busy year-round, especially during periods when domestic visitors slow down. AP also links the decline to a broader context: rising travel costs and cautious sentiment due to policy and the economic environment. Time adds an important perspective. Canada is declining sharply, and the WTTC forecasts that the US could lose $12.5 billion in international tourism spending in 2025, showing that this is not just a story about Vegas, but a significant pressure on the US tourism industry as a whole. But what's most remarkable is that despite their different nationalities, both groups are touching the same feeling. They don't just see it as expensive, they feel manipulated. And that feeling doesn't discriminate based on passport. As surcharges and pricing per touchpoint mechanisms spread, visitors began entering Vegas with a defensive mindset rather than eagerly. For families with children, people with diabetes, high blood pressure, or intestinal issues, the shock is not only financial but also psychological. The unexpected costs make the trip less safe, less controlled, more stressful, and less enjoyable. Vegas is therefore facing a paradox. It's still Vegas. There are still shows, there are still lights, But what's leaving is trust. And when trust retreats, the retreat isn't just about booking clicks. It trickled down to deeper levels, where workers who lived off the flow of tourists began to feel the decline even before the city could acknowledge it. In Vegas, when the customer disappears, the tip disappears first. And when tips disappear, workers understand that the golden season is no longer certain, even if the signs are still lit and the music is still playing. Time documented the real-life stories of workers' cut hours, reduced tips, and a shrinking work schedule. Pressure isn't just present in small casinos. It's even felt at large resorts like the MGM Grand and Fontainebleau. When passenger traffic decreases, the slowdown is reflected in a very real way: fewer work shifts, less income, and more families entering a state of prolonged instability. AP confirms the same picture from an industry perspective. Room capacity is down, businesses are worried about international tourist flow, and the decline is impacting the service sector as a whole. When a city relies on discretionary spending, if tourism drops significantly, the domino effect will spread from casinos to restaurants to bars to taxis, buck ride shares, to the small shops that thrive on the rhythm of the Strip. On an emotional level, workers suffer a more silent form of damage. They are turned into shields for pricing strategies. When the resort increases fees, guests get upset. And the thing customers are most annoyed by is usually hidden fees. The natural reaction of many tourists is to spend less, reduce tipping, or cut services. Workers, not corporations, are the ones who take the direct hit. A city can optimize profits on bills, but it cannot optimize the harm when a family loses a few $100s in tips each week. And that extends to public health. Service workers often have long working hours and are easily worn down physically. When income decreases, families with children and elderly members are more likely to experience medical stress, delaying medical appointments, reducing the quality of their diet, and living under constant pressure. So Vegas isn't just losing tourism revenue. It destabilizes the community, because this city depends on services like a lung depends on oxygen. Las Vegas was once a place where people were willing to lose money in exchange for the feeling of living another life. But if Vegas turns the experience into a series of bills and surcharges, it will lose its most precious asset: loyalty. A city can survive a low season, but a city is hard to live in if people stop wanting to return. And what's thought-provoking is this story isn't just about Vegas. It's a story about how destinations, brands, and even the modern economy are testing the limits of human endurance. When transparency disappears, joy is no longer joy. It became a transaction. And when everything becomes just transactions, the only emotion left will be doubt. If you found this video helpful in understanding what's happening in Las Vegas, and more broadly how the tourism and entertainment industries are changing, please share it with someone who loves Vegas, and subscribe so you don't miss the next analysis episodes. This gives the channel more motivation to continue making deeper, unhurried, and unvarnished investigative videos. This video is based on press sources and publicly available data at the time of production. Some of the statements in the video are analytical and synthetic and may change as new data becomes available. This video is not intended to provide financial, legal, or medical advice and does not represent any of the organizations mentioned.